All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Dunk Talk episode 5. My name is Dylan Haugen, and today we got a special guest, Zach Velis, how you say it?
It's Velis. Yeah, Zach
Velis?
B. Jones.
Yes, sir. Well, yeah. If you want to introduce yourself, Zach, where you from, how tall you are, all that.
Yeah, so I'm from Northern Virginia. I'm like 6'1" and a half, 19 years old. I've been out of the dunk game for a bit because of injury, but like I used to be pretty good. And I saw Dylan was doing these videos, so I hit him up to get on one. I feel like I've got some wisdom. So
Yeah. I think my first memories of you, I think you were one of the first people that I talked to in the dunk community. Um, yeah, I don't even really remember anyone else that I talked to back then. You were probably one of the first people. Uh,
yes.
And you were, I don't even remember how old you were at the time. Because I was like, because how old are you now?
I'm 19 now. I was probably like 16 or
Yeah.
15 when we
I think
started talking.
you were probably 16, 15, yeah. And you were, when did you get your first dunk?
15, but I
15?
wasn't dunking consistent till like 16 pretty
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. So you got your first dunk like a year before I did, probably. Because I got it when I was 13. So, well, I got it when I was like late 13 too. So it might have been around the same time, actually. No, no. Yeah, you definitely were before me. Um, but yeah, I think we definitely, I looked at your stuff a lot because you were same plant as me and whatever.
Mhm.
So you definitely helped me a lot when I was just starting. So yeah, I know you're recovering from something right now. Can you explain like what your injury is and how the recovery
Uh,
and stuff?
yeah, so might take a while. The injury occurred. I wrote it down like the timeline because it's
Yeah.
just so confusing. Summer of 2022, which that's when I was in my prime. I was doing like East Bay, 360 East Bay, like some crazy stuff pretty consistently. And I had the dunk camp summer 2022, which I think you were at that
Was
one.
that that? Yeah, I met you there.
I think, yeah, that's where we met in person. So the week before the dunk camp, I was like low rimming and like so light. That's the crazy part is I was going like 10%. Like it was an 8 foot rim, and I was like, well beyond that at that point. But I did a between the legs, and I remember like landing and like my knee kind of twisted, and I felt like a sharp pain.
Which knee was it?
My right knee.
Oh,
And I'm a left right jumper,
yeah.
but when I would jump off one, I would jump off my right leg. So that kind of sucked. And dunk camp, like I said, was the week after. So I was like, shit, I paid
I
for
didn't
it.
I didn't know it was that close to it, bro. That
It
sucks.
was it was literally I think it was honestly like 2 days before dunk camp started.
Bro. That
And
sucks.
like you can't get a refund at that point.
No, yeah.
So I went to camp and like everyone at dunk camp has knee problems, like is
Pretty
dealing with
much. Yeah.
something. So like I didn't think much of it. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna take the first few days off, take a lot of Advil or whatever, and then do the 10 foot contest because at the time my goal was to be like the youngest person to win the 10 foot contest because I was like 17 and everyone else was like in their 20s.
Mhm.
Maybe like one 19-year old, but I was well younger than everyone else. I was confident. So my main thing was to participate in that, but I tested like a 35, which was not good for me. I remember
35 with 35 max?
35 at dunk camp because
Oh,
my
wow.
my knee was hurting so
Yeah.
bad. And it
That's
was
kind of how
late.
I was last year. In 2022, the year I met you, I actually tested a 36 and a half, which was higher than you, which is kind of funny. That was definitely not the case at the time.
Yeah.
And then I came back in 2023 and I tested a 37 and a half.
Hmm.
And that year I was like very confident that I was going to get like at least 39, maybe even 40.
Yeah.
But during my testing, I had like the craziest knee flare up I've ever had. And, now it's like not that uncommon, but it was such terrible timing because I had never had really a flare up like that. So I definitely know what it's like to, kind of have testing derailed, but obviously yours is very different. So
My small was bad, but like, yeah, I mean, I guess you've experienced it too, because it's like one, your knee hurts, which sucks, and then two, when you're dealing with an injury, obviously you're not going to jump as high.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is too, like I hear John say this all the time. The thing about like tendon pain and stuff, like obviously your injury was a lot more serious, but even just like typical tendinopathy, tendinitis, like
Mhm.
it just decreases your performance. Like even I
Yeah,
see it like mentally, like sometimes even still, sometimes if I just like feel like a little bit of like pain, not even like pain, just like I know that it's there or it was there, I'll like automatically like not jump my hardest.
yeah, for
Same
sure.
thing. Like I just messed myself up yesterday. Actually, it's like on the back of my knee. I don't even know. Sometimes when I do 360s, I like plant really hard on my block foot, and it just like messes something up in the back. And it's like not a problem when I'm jumping, but I like feel it, and then I just like don't try as hard really. So it's really just
Yeah.
mental. But also you have a way more serious injury, so that's scary.
Yeah, and I mean, I can get into that too, because that's how I've been for like the past like over a year
Yeah.
dealing with that mental block. But anyways, uh, so I was saying that I tested a 35, which I mean, that was not good for me.
Close.
Um,
Yeah.
the year before that, for reference, I tested I think a 37 and a half outdoors, and my progression was really good. So I was way better than I had been a year before that. So
Yeah, definitely.
the 35 was not good. And then I kind of just figured everything was okay because, like I said, and like you said, you've dealt with knee pain. Everybody's dealt with it. I just figured like do the isometrics, take Advil, I'd be good. So I pushed through that and I did okay in the contest. I hit
I
like a
remember,
two.
yeah, I watched you in the contest. You did really good actually. Especially I didn't even like know that you were, that much lower than your peak. So that's actually really good for, you know,
Yeah, I was
five
I was
inch stack.
surprised. I was surprised to hit those dunks. But yeah, so I went
What'd you hit
actually,
again? I remember
was it?
I remember one of them. What'd you hit again?
Oh, it was Jordan Kilgannon threw me a off the side
That's the one
tomahawk.
I remember.
And then the other one was a two-handed windmill. I got it on like my third try, so I think they penalized that a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know if you know this, but I went to LA right after that because I had planned a trip like that, to meet up with Elijah Bonds, who I'm sure you know, and
Yeah.
then to dunk on like the hoop bus. And this whole time, like I was just so down bad, like my knee was just hurting so bad. But I had dunk camp in LA, like I had to just get that content. And so I pushed through it. And I came back home and saw a specialist, and he told me that it was tendonitis, patellar tendonitis,
That's
which
it, bro.
that's what he told me. And that's
No.
what everyone was telling me too, like John, Dunkers, everyone's telling me patellar tendonitis. I thought I was just being, soft. So I ended up doing like I wasn't on THP at the time, but I knew like a lot of the stuff that they were doing because I had a lot of connections and whatnot. And so I was doing all like the isometric, slow strength, as you would know, like the rehab exercises,
Yeah.
and it didn't really work for me. But I guess the
Were you
assumption,
jumping at the time or not? Like, did you cut out jumping completely too?
yeah. So at that time, I cut out jumping, but I would like so my knee pain was super weird because you probably see a lot of the time when they talk about isometrics and like drop jumps and slow squats, like if your knee pain is like a 2 or a 3, then that's fine. You can
Yeah.
push through. So for me, eventually the isometrics and slow squats, I had a 0 out of 10 pain when I would do them. And then I would go jump and it would hurt just as bad as it did when I first injured my knee. So
It's really weird.
that's how I knew I was dealing with something different. But I ended up going to see another specialist, and he said the same thing, tendonitis. So for about a year and a half, I would say almost 2 years, I was dealing with this cycle of, trying to figure it out myself with isometrics, slow strength, whatnot, seeing specialists, going to physical therapy. And sometimes I would totally mess it up and I would kind of throw myself into the fire like way too early and try
Yeah.
to dump, re injure it. But there was times where I would go like 3 to 6 months rehabbing. I mean, y'all probably don't know this if any of you guys follow me. Like I know Dylan, you keep up with my Instagram, but I wasn't really posting about it. Like I was pretty locked in with the rehabbing and it just didn't work, which
Yeah,
was super
I mean,
annoying.
I didn't even really know what you were doing to be honest. I mean, I mean, at this time we weren't talking a lot. So
Yeah.
I hope that you were, trying your best to get rehab, but part of me was like, did bro just quit? Like what
Yeah.
happened? What happened? But I assumed that you were at least trying to, but yeah, that is really confusing to me. I mean, I have obviously personally not dealt with anything like that. I mean, generally, I do ISOs for I have quadricep tendonitis or tendinopathy in my left knee, but
Yeah.
it's never been well, first of all, it's never gone away. I've like gotten it and I've like always dealt with it, but at this point, it's like pretty manageable. Like it's
Yeah.
not I'd say there are times where it like messes with my performance, but most of the time, it's just fine. But I've never gone through that where it's like, you feel good and then as soon as you jump, it's screwed up. I mean, I don't even know how to explain that. So I guess I'll let you do that since you've gone through it.
Yeah. I mean, it was like you said, like regular like tendonitis, like it's more about like managing it versus healing it. And like a
Yeah.
lot of people are able to manage it, which is why I think it was easy to misdiagnose what I had because it's like, oh yeah, it's meant to continue being a problem, whatever. But I'm like, seriously, because like it hurts so bad. And like you said, yours was in your quad, which I guess is somewhat rare of a spot to have it. Mine was on the
It's
other.
like it's not really like in my quad, but it's like right above my kneecap basically. So it's
Mhm.
kind of like it's like technically in the quad, but it's pretty much still just knee pain. So
Yeah, so that's how mine is too, just like on the other side, because mine is like where my tendon inserts into like my tibia, so my shin. So mine's at the very bottom, which is a little bit more rare. But the one thing that I found was a difference when I would discuss my injury to people that had like regular jumper's knee is like the pain for me was like one, I got it from like a specific landing, a specific injury, which I don't know. Is that what happened to you?
when I first started like dealing with quad stuff,
Yeah.
no, no, definitely not. I would
Mhm.
say every time that I've flared up anything, except very few times. I mean, I would say the first real injury that I got was because of a landing. But it was like, it was not tendonitis at all. I don't even remember what the doctor said because I went to the doctor and they told me like, oh, we think you fractured this, and that. So I was like, oh my gosh, like, am I gonna be out? I thought I was gonna be out months. And then I came back, a month later and they're just like, oh, it's just a bone bruise, you're good. So I mean, I've had a bone bruise before on my knee, which was, pretty annoying, was on crutches for a little bit. But then every other time, pretty much, besides like yesterday, where I just like land weird and like mess up, just something random, but that's more like a muscle strain, it's definitely not anything like what you had. Everything else, though, has just been like, I'm jumping for 2 hours and then I start to feel something and then it's
Yeah.
there for a couple days and then it goes away. Or,
Yeah.
my quad, it just, stays. But, it's not from anything specific. It's just from a lot of things.
Yeah. And that's how like my injury was different is like you don't tendons usually get injured from an overuse thing. You
Yeah,
don't
tendons
see
are insanely strong. Like they don't, yeah, John says that all the time. Like, they don't just get injured really. It's like you have to really do a lot to mess up a tendon. So
I mean, especially too, because like I said, I was dunking on 8 feet. I probably jumped like 6 inches on that jump.
that's super weird.
Super weird. So, and the other thing that separated it, besides, the fact that it wasn't going away, and then the specific landing thing, was like the type of pain that I got felt like bony. Like I figured like a tendon pain
That's what I was gonna ask.
would be like a soft pain, maybe around like that whole area. Whereas like my pain I felt like I had like a bone that was broken or bruised, where every time I would jump, it would just hit against that bone. and like it hurt really bad.
Yeah, that's definitely not tendonitis. That
Yeah,
is.
and I tried to explain this to a
Have
bunch of
you
people who
have
were
you
just
ever
like,
dealt
"Oh,
with tendonitis or tendinopathy or something, anything like that?
no." So the
Okay, so
interesting,
that makes it a lot harder too. I didn't. I guess.
like
Uh,
I didn't know, I had no idea.
yeah.
And like the craziest part is like through my MRIs and X-rays, um, they like my tendon, my patellar tendon is like completely intact, which is absurd. Like my whole knee, like structurally, is completely intact. But when I went to I went to a third doctor, and this doctor like works for like the like Washington Commanders and like George Mason Athletics, so like pretty legit.
Yeah.
And he showed me like the X-ray, and basically my I had an extra bone fragment from having Osgood-Schlatters as a kid, and I
Mm.
guess somehow, because I know I haven't really explained why I got the surgery and whatnot. Somehow that one landing, I guess, affected the way that like bone fragment or piece of bone was interacting with like my knee, my tendon. Maybe it moved a little bit, shifted. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, so I can't really tell you. But I had to basically have surgery to get rid of the bone, which is like it's basically like an uncommon procedure for people
Yeah.
that have
I've never
Osgood-Schlatter.
heard of that. That's crazy.
It's like people that have Osgood-Schlatters, which I know Isaiah had it. Um, a lot of people have it,
Yeah.
like a growth plate thing. If it still affects you into like your 20s or 30s or whatever, people have this procedure, I suppose. So I ended up getting that procedure a week ago. So I'm just now starting to feel good again. But that's my injury history, and that's the surgery that I got. I know I haven't told anybody really about all that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was super curious to hear about it because I had no clue. So I mean,
Yeah,
that's cool that you got it dealt with, hopefully, but
hopefully.
that is a really weird injury, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I ended up like not really going to the dunk community about the injury because like at first everyone's just like, oh, tendonitis, which ended up being
Yeah, I don't
incorrect.
blame you. A lot of
And
people just say that.
then second, it's like people started saying like, well, the reason why you're not healed is because you're not doing your isometrics and slow strength and I'm just like, I was so sick of it because I'm like, no one knows how hard I'm working behind closed doors. And like this is a stressful injury because I'm 19 years old and I would be limping walking to class at college, like it's no joke. So it's just I had to like kind of go off the grid for a little bit.
Yeah. So you were talking about your Oscar sliders or however you say it.
Mhm.
So like can you explain like what even I mean I generally know what it is, but can you like explain that to people watching? Like how does
Yeah.
that happen? Like what does it do?
So I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's basically like in your knee, you have like, I think it's like an extra area where your bone can grow in.
Mhm.
So, or maybe like one bone grows faster than the
Yeah,
other.
I've seen it on people. It just looks like a weird bump, basically, like
Mhm.
in a
You
spot that
have,
you normally wouldn't see one. So
yeah, you have a bump because like the bone grows like I guess a little closer to your skin,
mhm.
and people have problems with it when they're like younger. Like I know I did. I know Isaiah
Yeah,
talked
I
about.
know I know quite a few people like in my grade or whatever that struggle with it. So
But usually, once you're fully grown, it goes away. And mine completely went away for me until I had that landing. So I have no idea really. Like I might not even be correct with the diagnosis of my own injury because it's confusing, but that shit
oh,
usually does not
for your
happen.
surgery, did you get something like removed or moved or just like moved or what was it like?
Yeah, so the surgery, they split through my tendon to get the that piece of bone, and then they just removed it. That's
Okay.
all it
So yeah,
was.
it does just sound like you had like some extra bone that just like randomly fell off or something. That is
Yeah.
weird.
No,
Um,
it was so painful too, and everyone's just like, "I'll get over it," because
yeah.
I deal with jumpers knee, whatever, and I'm just like,
I
nah.
mean, obviously it's good that you've never dealt with like tendonitis or tendinopathy, but it's also like unfortunate that you hadn't because you would have been able to immediately tell like, oh, this is different, you know?
Yeah, no,
It really sucks because
point.
basically all of us, all the dunkers anyway, like go through some type of just overuse injury because most of them are, addicted to it and they just love to do it. So, um, but yeah, I mean, I've never heard of that. It's really interesting, but obviously terrible
Yeah.
injury. So,
Yeah.
what's the recovery like for that? Like you said you got surgery a week ago?
Yeah, so I just started PT today and like I can't even bend my knee right now. I
Yeah.
can't lift it. But I think it's gonna be like 6 months of PT, like not as bad as like a major knee surgery, but like it's gonna suck. Um, I don't even really know the timeline of it yet. I guess it all just depends.
Yeah.
But I have no idea if I'm even gonna be able to dunk after, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I should be able to, but like I just
If
don't
it
know.
goes well, yeah.
But the interesting thing is, and you've probably seen like with my Instagram when I do post, is like my vertical hasn't even really gone down. Like I'm still hitting like this past year I hit like double up X, which is like if y'all don't know, you jump over someone, do a reverse. I was back rimming between the legs. I can windmill consistently still and whatnot. So like when I do dunk, which is very occasionally, before surgery, like I was able to like get up a little bit, but it was just so painful that like it wasn't worth it to keep doing it.
Yeah. So would you say like if you do fully recover in like a year, however long, like is it in your goals to like still get back into it or
Yeah, I would say like my short-term goal right now is like just to get my like rehab as good as possible
yeah,
to like do every workout, track it and whatnot. And then eventually, my next goal would be to return to basketball, just casually,
yeah,
recreationally. And then my next goal after that would be to return to, dunking like crazy.
yeah, for sure. All right, well we can kind of go backwards a bit. Like so when you let's just start talking about like, your start to dunking or whatever. So I mean, for me personally, like I kind of just started out like on like low rims, like 7.5, 8 feet. And that's actually just kind of how I fell in love with basketball too. Like at the time I didn't really care about basketball, but like low rimming got me into basketball. And then later in life I kind of realized that like dunking was just really my favorite part of it. So like, what was kind of your intro to both sports?
Yeah, so I always liked basketball. I mean, I was a little late to it. Like I started playing, I think, middle school. Um,
Yeah,
I always I always liked dunking. I always loved it. Like I never had like a specific player that I would watch, but like I remember like I would be at the pool dunking, I would be low rim dunking and all of that. And since I was kind of like into basketball too, a goal of mine was always to be able to dunk on 10 feet.
yeah. Yeah, I feel like everyone has that goal. It just kind of depends on who, you know, takes that step and actually goes for it. Because,
Mhm.
like one thing that I think holds a lot of people back is like they just don't want to they don't want to jump in front of people because they don't want to like look stupid.
Mhm.
And I think for me, I started jumping so early that like by the time that it was like, actually time for me to like actually jump in front of people. I like wasn't worried about it because I had jumped so much that my vertical had like increased to a point like, fifth, sixth grade, like touching backboard is not that crazy, but in fifth, sixth grade, like everyone thought it was. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of the kids on my teams in those years would not do that at all. Like even if I asked them to, like, go try to touch the backboard, they'd never do it because they knew that they couldn't.
Yeah,
And
like
I think that
embarrassing.
pushing yourself like to go get that is insanely beneficial to your vertical. So I mean, were you kind of that kid that just like jumped all the time or
Yeah, I mean, I was like, oh, so I was like, I hit my growth spurt late, I guess, but starting like maybe late freshman, sophomore year, I was like 6 feet. So I was already tall. I had like long ass arms, and I was always like naturally able to like jump higher than other people because I guess I was just athletic. So yeah, I was always that kid that was touching the rim, trying to dunk, as you can probably relate to, trying to dunk well
yeah, for
before you
sure.
can, just throwing it up against the backboard, whatever. I was always that kid. And then during COVID, I started low rimming because I had a hoop in my backyard
How old
and
were you then?
15, I was 15. I started low rimming and I would do like different dunks on like the 8 foot rim and I would record them. And the reason why I made my Instagram was because I wanted to have like a gallery, I guess, where I could have every single one of my like achievements, like between the legs on 8 feet, behind the back. I'll post all this stuff. And I remember seeing Jay Clark. He was the first professional dunker I saw. And through him, I heard about the dunk camp, and then I heard about the whole dunk community. So that's how I kind of got involved with the dunk community. I was actually posting these dunk videos just to like organize them for myself.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized there's a whole community of people doing the same thing. So I started following, reaching out to people, and all of that.
Yeah. I think when I started my Instagram and my YouTube and stuff, it wasn't really for dunking. I think I kind of started dunking quite a bit after that. Like I initially I was, I grew up watching quite a bit of YouTube, and
Mhm.
one of my like dreams was to be a YouTuber, just thought it sounded like a super cool job. And
Yeah,
my first YouTube videos were literally like me. I'd like set my phone up and record my TV and like play video games, like that was kind of some of the first things I did. And then I expanded into like the trick shot stuff. And then eventually I started posting just like low rim dunking videos. And then I'd still post like some trick shots and basketball here and there, but I've just kind of slowly moved to like only dunking. In the past like year and a half, I think I've, rarely posted anything besides dunking or lifting or talking about dunking or something like that. So
Mhm.
I would say if I could go back to when I was like 11 or like 10, 11 when I started dunking on low rims a lot, I really wish I would have recorded those things and organized them like you did because I just now, I don't know if you saw, but I have a account on Instagram called like DH23 Archives or something like that.
I think I've seen that account.
I basically posted like every single one of my first evers, like on every
Mhm.
rim height. And that took hours, like probably not even hours, literal days, bro. Because I had to
Yeah.
go through like my whole camera roll and find everything. But I love it. I mean, I love going on there and I like have it organized by story highlights and stuff. So I'd say like for the people that are just starting, like just take those videos, bro. Like
Yeah.
mm, there's no loss in taking those videos. Like you don't even have to post them to anyone, but as you get better and you realize that there is a supportive community out there, you'll probably want to be honest. So
Yeah, the tracking is super cool. I do that with my story highlight,
yeah,
and that's like honestly, if y'all check out my account, the story highlight, which has my first ever of every type of dunk, is my favorite part of that account, to be honest. It's just so cool to see everything in chronological order. And I remember thinking like I would hit my first dunk, hit my first two-hander, windmill, reverse, and now I'm thinking like what's next? And I was always like hoping that I could find someone else that had it in chronological order where you see, okay, after the windmill, they did this. And
that
that's why
would
I
that would
did
have
it.
been super helpful for me too, bro. Because there was a point where I was like, well, there's been multiple points. Like even right now, I'm kind of like, well, what is next? Like I have
Mhm.
a ton of things that I would say are like on my list or whatever, but there's none of them that I'm like, oh, I could hit this today because I simply really don't even know. I mean, I think now I have a better understanding because I basically hit like everything on low rims. So I kind of know like what comes next. But especially for people who are starting, like, yeah, I think your story highlight is a cool thing. I think my other account is a cool thing. And
Mhm.
obviously it's different for everyone because everyone has like different strengths and stuff. But I think, yeah, like just knowing like what is next is super helpful for people and it just helps people kind of expand their, creativity and whatever else.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
Like, what would you say like your first few trick dunks like after just simple one-hander was?
Let me check because I don't remember. I know one-hander. So my first dunk was actually off one,
Yeah,
which a lot of people know that. Because I'm mostly a 2 foot jumper. My second dunk was a one-hander off two, and then after that I switched to off two.
yeah,
Two-hander, windmill, off the backboard,
Yeah, you got a windmill quick. I had to hit a
tomahawk.
ton of stuff before I had a windmill.
Well, my first windmill was not that good. It was like that. That's all it
I
was.
guess, yeah.
But
But
I was still hyped when I hit it. And then it's just like self-balance, back scratcher, just the basic stuff. And if y'all want to see it, you can check it out on my account or on Dylan's archive account.
yeah, I just spent like 15 minutes going through it. It was pretty entertaining. So, so around that time you were like 15, right? So when would you say like you started to like get like elite? I mean, I would like when did you
Elite.
like start to like hit like those crazy stuff, you know?
So I hit my first East Bay between the legs at 16. Um,
I didn't remember it was that young. That's crazy.
it was on 9-9, but then the next week or 2 weeks later, I hit between the legs off the dribble on 10 in a high school.
Did you know it was 9-9?
Oh yeah, I knew that the first one was 9-9, but I still counted it.
Yeah,
Now I count
I think a
like
lot of people that like get their first dunk of something on 9-9 and don't know it, just go
yeah,
and hit it on 10 feet because like there's like the mental thing where they're like, oh, I already hit this, and then they just go and hit it on 10. So I think obviously knowing the rim height is actually very beneficial because I think like there's been times where before I even like knew that measuring a rim with a tape measure was possible, you know, I used to just kind of like guess, and you know, my guessing's pretty good, but it's never perfect. So like, there's been hoops that I've dunked on. Like actually, recently I've had quite a few sessions at this court that's 9-8,
mhm,
and back when I was first starting, I had no clue it was 9-8. If you go to the court and you look at it, it literally looks like 10 feet. Like it's like so confusing, bro.
that's
Um,
weird.
and I was so surprised when I measured it. I didn't really have many sessions there. But I think knowing the rim height for like everything you do is super beneficial because then you can like it's just so much easier to gauge progress. Like I don't even really care about like the being honest X aspect of it. It's more for myself. I think that being honest is obviously beneficial for the whole community, but even just for yourself, like you gotta at least know what it is. And then, you
Yeah, I
know,
mean,
just don't
be
lie. But
I do post the rim height on all of my posts, but I don't think like being honest matters that much because at the end of the day, if you get to a good enough level, you're going to be tested in person. Everyone's going to see your skill level at the dunk camp. So I see why people won't, I round everything to the nearest half inch. Some people round it to the nearest inch, some people don't post it at all. I think as long as you're not posting 9-8 and pretend not putting the rim height and alluding that it's
yeah,
10, I think it's fine.
yeah. I do.
I count 9-10.
There's definitely like huge difference between 9-9 and 10 feet. So I think like if you're doing 9-9, you know, obviously don't say it's 10 feet, but
Yeah,
like if you're doing 9-9, say it's 9-9. I have
yeah.
zero problem with that because like I dunk, like I just said, like I just dunked on 9-8 yesterday,
Mhm.
and you know I'll gladly post those clips because they were good clips for a 9-8. You know, like they're not, they would be insane for my 10 feet, but you know they're just pretty decent clips for 9-8, and I'm like I just consider it a practice session. Like there are dunks that I'm not quite ready to hit on 10 yet, but like the only way to practice them is to low rim. So there's no problem with dunking on low rims as long as you're not like completely pretending that it's, you know, 10. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I agree.
I love dunking on like 9, 10.5 though. I mean, one reason I saw Mason, you know, Mason Baker, the Utah.
No,
Well, he's getting pretty good. He just posted something recently about like why he dunks on 9, 10.5 or something like that. And I was kind of thinking about it, like why do I dunk on 9, 10.5? Because I have access to 10 feet every single weekend, but I just choose 9, 10.5 every single weekend.
yeah,
And I think the biggest reason for me is like I'm 16 years old. I have so many years ahead of me. And for me to be like just like doing dunks, like trying really hard to do a bunch of dunks on 10 feet right now is less beneficial than me getting really good reps on 9, 10.5. And
mhm,
it's not like that much of a difference. There's definitely a difference, but I don't think it's like that much of a difference. But then also there's a big difference between dunking alone in a gym and dunking, you know, with a bunch of people. So like for me, 9, 10.5 alone is basically the same as 10 feet with adrenaline, you know? So it's like
yeah.
you got to consider those things too. And yeah.
Yeah, I don't even dunk alone anymore. Like if I do dunk, I just be texting like the group chat or something. I can't even go.
Yeah.
Like it's just
Yeah, bro.
an
It's
adrenaline
so
killer.
it's so hard alone. I literally text like every single person in the area every weekend, and if none of them can come, I'm like, this is gonna be a rough session. Recently, I've taken caffeine like twice, and that's helped me a lot when I'm alone. But obviously, I don't want to, take caffeine every weekend because I still want to like. Well, I talked to Tom and Austin, my trainers, about it. I'm like, I know that caffeine gives like very good benefits, but I don't want to take it every weekend because then I feel like it won't give me like any benefits. Like I still want it to be like when I do take it, it's like I'm gonna go crazy, kind of, not just like, oh, I do this every weekend. And that's just,
Yeah, I don't take caffeine or anything like that at all just because like I don't know, I figured like if I can do it without caffeine, then that's better, and probably more stable.
yeah,
But
definitely.
a lot of my friends do the caffeine like every dunk session in the car right before.
Yeah, I couldn't do that. I don't, first of all, I don't like it. So I'm
Mhm.
just like, if I do drink it, it's literally just like I just want to jump insanely high today. But like sometimes you can overdo it too, so it's just I don't know. I don't like it, but it is like a little fun experiment sometimes. But yeah. So I mean, so when you were in like high school, you're 15, 16 years old, and you're starting to unlock these dunks. Were you also like playing basketball at the time? Because I know I've seen your clips. Did you play like what'd you play?
Uh, I played I was playing rec league, which is where I was getting all the in-game dunks
Yeah.
from. And then I played fall league, but I don't think I got any in-game dunks there. It was all from rec.
Yeah. I mean,
So
I've
the
seen
competition
I've seen
was
some of your
not that
dunk
good,
games.
but
Those are, I mean, some of them were pretty crazy though. I mean, I remember you dunked on some kid one time, the one-hander pretty early. You were like
yeah,
wearing a mask at the time too.
I think that was what, junior year of high school. I was 16.
Yeah,
I was
that makes
16,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think a few of your in-game dunks I remember. I mean, I remember the 1 foot one-hander that was basically on the dude. I remember the one that got put on overtime, of course.
Mhm.
Where you got teed up.
That one was funny.
That was funny. I got teed up this year for I like one of my teammates says he threw me a lob, but I'm pretty sure he just missed the layup. And I came up and grabbed it and dunked it, and I literally just like, just yelled. It wasn't even like loud, bro. Like, and the ref just teed me up, and it was like, come on. So I don't know. It's pretty
Yeah,
funny.
we got a minute left, so
All right, I'll stop it, restart it, but I'll be right back. I'll resend you the link. All right.
all right, I'll see you in a second then.
So, all right, we back. So we are talking about your in-game dunks and whatever. So through high school, you said you played rec or whatever. What do you think your favorite in-game dunk out of that time was?
Oh man, probably some uh some pickup game stuff. I used to put people in body bags at this one gym because the rim was 9'10". But in actual games, oh, I don't even know. Probably the overtime one, just because it's two
Oh,
hands
funny.
hung on the rim and I did the head tap.
Yeah, that was
I've
hilarious.
never I've never seen that before, so it's probably that one.
Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah.
Um, so talking about like dunk sessions, was that 2022? Same time as like 360 East Bay and all that?
Yeah, that was like a couple months before the 360 East Bay.
Yeah. So was that 2022 though?
Yeah.
Yeah. So during that year, like what were some of the dunks you unlocked that year? Because I remember there were some pretty crazy ones.
Yeah. So I still remember January 1st of 2022. I had a crazy session. That one got posted on overtime. Um, maybe not on Instagram, but on like the Twitter and the TikTok. And it was off the wall East Bay, which was crazy.
Oh, with the squad too.
Yeah. And then off one East Bay, which was pretty crazy for me because I didn't really have off one bounce. Um, so I hit those that session. Later on, I hit the elbow dunk, the Vince Carter, 360 East Bay, obviously. Just like consistent East bays off the backboard windmills, over somebody East bay, 360 scoop, which was hard for me because that was with my right hand and I'm left-handed.
Is it off lob?
Yeah.
Oh dang, I don't even remember seeing that one. That's crazy.
Yeah, just like a lot of random stuff to be honest. But I was more so focused on my being able to hit the same dunks consistently.
Yeah,
Maybe like the East Bay on any like good jumping day, I would want to be able to hit that. And then the windmill, like to be able to hit on just any day at all.
that's kind of my goal right now. I'd say I'm like able to hit windmill basically every day, but I'm trying to get East Bay like every day. And I've been closer
Yeah.
to getting East Bays like every session, but it's like, you know, I'll still have days where I'm like, you know, I just simply can't at all. So
Yeah, I mean, people don't understand like the difference between like professionals and then like the kids that are really good because like Jordan Sutherland, for example, I remember hearing like him saying like he can wake up in the morning and slides and do it between the legs on 10.
easily,
Whereas
easily, bro.
like you look at me in my prime, like I was pretty good, but I wasn't hitting East Bays even every dunk session. And when I did, it was anywhere between 9, 10 to 10. So there's definitely a big difference there.
I mean, yeah, I would say I didn't understand that with pro dunkers until I went to camp, specifically 2023 camp. I know you weren't there, but Sutherland went insane. Like I don't like and Kilgannon went crazy too. Isaiah was doing right, left, left, right. He was kind of struggling with some injuries and stuff. But those two specifically really stood out to me, specifically because they both did the gauntlet. Um, you hear about that,
Um,
like the dunk levels and stuff.
I saw that on Instagram.
Yeah, Jordan did the whole thing without missing. And it was like
That's-
it was just eye-opening because the gauntlet, if you don't know, is or just the last level of the gauntlet, like the black band is 360 East Bay off the backboard, 360 behind the back, Scorpion and under both, which are like all insane dunks. And
Those are like the God dunks.
Jordan literally just warmed up, did those dunks, and that was it. Like it was ridiculous. And Sutherland too, doing them off one foot is even harder in my opinion. Like you very rarely see people do those off one foot, and he just casually did them all, plus like 50 other dunks I don't think I've ever seen. Like he's just so different, bro.
Yeah, I mean a lot of people that do the dunks in the dunk community, they'll say they have like an eye-opening experience when they first step into the same gym as the pros. And I remember for me, I dunked with Jordan
I was just
Kilgannon.
gonna ask you about that when you went to North Carolina.
Um, I went to North Carolina to dunk with Obi, who was so good because he's 6'6" with like a
He
40
hit,
left.
did he hit an inverter that day?
Yeah, he did. I think so.
Yeah.
Pretty sure. So Obi,
I haven't watched the session in a minute, but yeah, I think everyone went pretty crazy that day.
it's on YouTube. So if y'all want to watch it, you just gotta go fish it up. But it was Obi, uh, Travis was there, but he was hurt. Jordan Kilgannon and
Oh,
Dan
or sorry, Dan. Yeah, that's what I meant.
James Rose. So Jordan at the time, like obviously he was nasty, but like I'm like coming into this knowing like, okay, this is the best dunker in the world. And then Dan was like, in my opinion, probably like top 5, top 10 at the time, but not as much like hype around his name. And he was just so nasty, like
Dan's
head
been so
above the
underrated for
rim.
so long, bro.
He's so good. And I remember seeing Jordan, Dan, and Obi and being like, holy shit.
I'm terrible.
Yeah. Well, at the time I knew I had time because I was so young. I was
Yeah.
16. But I'm like struggling to hit an East Bay and they're doing it like off vert. And I'm just like, wow.
Yeah, that's kind of how it was for me. Even just dunking with like random people. I don't know if you heard about like the dunk squads and stuff like that. Well, basically like we just like, you know, made like formal dunk teams based on state basically. And I had one, or I still have one, dunk with them a lot called like the Minnesota Dunk Squad. And there's just one guy named Gideon, and he's 5'9". He pretty honestly probably 5'8". Say he's 5'9", but he's just so tiny compared to me. And like he East Bays so easily. And like not even just that, but like he could like if I was with him right now and he'd been laying down for, you know, 2 days, he could stand up and do a two-hander off like two-step approach at 5'9". and he doesn't even have like super long arms or anything. It's just like it's so crazy when you dunk with people like that are just just on a different level, bro. Like I saw him back rim at 360 East Bay at 5'9" like 2 days ago or 2 weeks ago, and it's like
That's
it's
crazy.
just insane, bro.
Yeah, I remember when I went to camp, I was in group one and I was like, bet I belong here. Right. And to be fair, I was struggling with the injury, so I wasn't as good.
Yeah.
But I see like Cordell, shout out Cordell. I see him warming up like
You
slingshot
know, do you know where
off.
Cordell's been, by the way? I know this isn't.
No, I haven't talked to him in a bit or
I haven't
about
seen him in
dunking,
forever,
but
but
yeah, he's been inactive for a bit, but I think he's gonna come back.
probably.
I used to talk to Cordell a lot, but I see him like off of two steps, like punching like a slingshot, jumping like 46 inches, and I'm just like, damn.
Yeah.
And he
I
was with the pros at the time.
yeah. In 2022, I remember I don't even remember who was in my group, to be completely honest. Just because there was a lot of people that I didn't even like know at the time. But oh, except Zeke. There's one guy named Zeke. He isn't like super active in the dunk community, but he's a good basketball player for his age. But anyway, yeah, I mean, we didn't really I was in probably group. I don't even know what group it was. It was probably group 7 or something. Which made sense because I was the youngest person there. I mean, maybe not technically the youngest, but I was 14, so like the youngest you can be to go to camp. And yeah, I mean, the whole camp, I didn't really know anybody. So I just was like, I dunked here and there, but I didn't really participate in like any of the group stuff. Like I didn't go hang out with people after. And so I made sure I was way better about that in 2023. There actually wasn't groups in 2023. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's
it was just more
interesting.
like stations and stuff. It was different. I don't even remember to be honest. Um, but yeah, I just spent a lot more time just like talking to different people instead of kind of like staying with like my group or whatever. And I
Yeah.
think that was a lot more fun, like hanging out with people after too, just like sitting in the lobby with all the guys. Like that was really cool. So
Yeah, it was super fun for me. I think I got pretty close with Jaron and then Cordell. And then my boys, Yvonne and Adrian, I was already pretty close with, and Corey. So I had a few people to hang out with, but I didn't necessarily know too many people there either.
yeah. Um, so after dunk camp, you were obviously pretty injured.
Yeah.
Um, did you like what was it like after dunk camp? Like were you I know you still dunked like a little bit after. Not like what were
Yeah,
you
so just like that first few months after, I was kind of like, I guess, in denial about my injury. And I remember also like Dom, I think Dom, maybe a couple other people were dealing with a knee injury at the same time. And, we were all doing our isometrics and whatnot. And then I see them all returning to dunking. So I had to try. And there's a bunch of times where I felt, just a little bit of pain, which, as we discussed earlier, like that's not necessarily a bad thing when it
Mhm.
comes to like how the dunk community treats patellar tendonitis or tendinopathy. So I figured everything was okay until, like I said, later on, 6 months later, when I'm just rehabbing, not jumping, like the pain's still there.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean you still had sessions like did you have any sessions in 2023 or did you were you kind of
So 2023, I would dunk maybe like once every 2 months, and I was hitting some crazy dunks. Maryland session, I hit a off the wall windmill, which was cool. I hit like a cuff windmill over somebody, which I guess those are like pretty basic, but pretty good considering I was dealing with the injury. Like
yeah,
I said, like my bounce didn't necessarily go down. It was just so painful. And like you said earlier, when there's a mental block because of the pain, you just can't perform as good.
yeah, definitely. So, I mean obviously you've had surgery now. You're hopefully gonna come back eventually. Like what is the future looking like? What do you want to do?
I mean, really just like I mentioned, like I'm just super focused and locked in with rehab right now.
Yeah.
Um, as I have been previously, like I take that very seriously, and it's a shame that it hasn't worked in the past, but I really do think it's going to work this time. So my main goal is just like day to day, every day, do my rehab, go to physical therapy when I have to, and then, be smart about my body, and then eventually returning to sports, and then eventually returning to dunking. Hopefully, I just really have no idea like when that would be,
Yeah.
or, or even how my skill level would be. But I definitely see a comeback in my future.
Yeah, definitely. So right now, are you walking? Like you can do all that or not really?
I'm like barely walking. I'm struggling. Like I can't bend my knee yet, so I just walk with like a straight leg, and then I have a brace that I wear sometimes. But it's definitely a little worse than I thought. I remember I told my mom like that I wasn't worried about the surgery because like I gotta start work soon. I got stuff to do, and I'm like, oh whatever. Like I'm gonna get the surgery. I'll be fine in 2 weeks. Now I'm starting to see the reality of the situation, but I think realistically by the end of the summer I'll be able to function like day-to-day stuff, and then maybe by 2025 I'll be playing basketball and trying to dunk again.
Hopefully. Yeah, that'd
I
be
mean,
sick.
I don't see why once the like surgery is like healed up, like the incision wound and the swelling goes down, plus like I get a little bit of strength back, I don't see why there would be a problem anymore. Like I said, my tendon, my ligaments, everything is completely intact.
Yeah.
Um, Meniscus is intact. My cartilage is intact. So I don't see why there'd be a problem. But if there's anything that I've learned from this process is you can never be too sure. So I'm
Yeah.
just taking it
As
day to
long as
day.
as long as you don't rush it, I mean, I think you should be good eventually.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not like you, but I'm still pretty young, so I'm
Yeah.
not too worried. Like I've got a few more years ahead of me, hopefully. So comeback could happen.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm also gonna probably start posting updates about my rehab on my Instagram. If anyone's interested in that, probably start doing that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, I think that was a pretty good episode. I'm glad to hear that your recovery is going pretty good. Obviously, it's gonna be a while, but I think it's
Yeah.
definitely gonna be worth the wait. So appreciate you coming on, Zach. Yeah, where can the people find you?
At Zach V Dunks, ZachVDunx on Instagram. Although I don't really post much these days, but still hit me with a follow.
Yes,
And thank you, Dylan, for having me on here. I appreciate it.
bro. It was great. All right. See you guys in the next episode. So.